want to talk about your drumming a little bit.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of Buried Deep was your ride work. Does that come from Ryford?
It's funny. It does a lot. There's this specifically, this, I forget which track, but it's on Autopsy's Fiend for Blood. And I think the production on that one's just grimy and awesome. And you can just tell he's just like attacking the ride and just letting it kind of ring or the bell is going. And I think that a lot of my blasts on that, especially in the title track, Buried Deep, at the end, it's just totally that Autopsy sort of 1 foot, like aggressive blast. So yeah, I would say there is a lot of Ryford in there.
Do you have a specific ride that you like? A specific brand?
Honestly, right now, no. I've had a lot of the same stuff for a lot of years and kind of just switch it out when it seems convenient. And a lot of the time, I'll just practice on what me or either Seth, who I share a jam space with, he'll have at the time. So no.
Okay. Besides Ryford, are there any other drummers that you took inspiration from, or that you look up to?
I would say getting into drumming. I mean, Flo Monier, I love his drumming for those first couple Cryptopsy records.
Yeah.
I just feel like that really pushed stuff to the limit and has that tight but loose vibe. And I've always been inspired by, like, yeah, it's brutal and it's fast, but there's this no bullshit aggression to it and to the style where he just kind of does what he wants. And I would say that was a big influence getting into drumming myself. And then Jim Rowe of some of those early incantations. I love that drumming. I think it's awesome. There's a lot of good fill work in there. You can listen to Onward to Golgotha and just only listen to the drums, and that is super fun to follow and try to, read how he gets some of that fill work done. But yeah, I would say, yeah, Ryford, Jim Rowe, Flo Monier, kind of the main three. Fenriz on Soulside Journey in specific, I think is huge. Like that's one of, his best performances. It just like uses the whole kit and it's clean and it sounds awesome and super metal sounding. So that was one that I listened to quite a bit back then, getting into it.
Yeah. And Fenriz was super inspired by Autopsy on that first Dark Throne album, especially.
Yeah, definitely. Even in, some riffing, there's some cool bass parts that remind me just of, yeah, really Autopsy for sure. Some of those kind of like punk kind of thrash beats too. Yeah, I would say I agree.
So, the third Witch Vomit album is called Funeral Sanctum.
Yes.
And at the time we're having this conversation, it will be released at the end of the week through 20 Book Spin.
Yeah.
When did you guys start working on this album, or when did Tony and Casey come to you with the songs for this album?
Let's see. I would say we had this one down, like it's the second song on side B, and I would say that was probably the first one, and it had probably been shortly after the European tour 2022. It'll be called Dominion of a Darkened Realm. And that I think was the first one we were working with. And it actually had like a lot of Autopsy mid-pace stuff, a bit of like Demigod and like the intro kind of drum part. I took just inspiration from like bands like Bestial Warlust, just kind of like trying to attack you to start the song with just drumming. And I would say, yeah, just probably fall of 2022, I think. And then Tony and I just kind of, worked on a few songs. We had some other stuff going on. We were still playing shows with our other bands and stuff. And we started getting like 1 to 3 songs down. And then the writing took off. I'd say probably maybe just like a year ago, we tried to really sort of pick up the pace on it and stuff. But yeah, just about a couple years ago from today was when he showed me the first couple riffs.
You described some of the the earlier Witch Vomit songs as riff trains.
Uh-huh.
Comparatively, how would you compare the songwriting to those early albums?
I think that on some of those early albums, there are actually a lot of, well, I would say on the first record, there's actually a lot of similarities to this one. And the riff train thing, I think, was also really inspired by how Soulside Journey, Dark Throne, is. There's just a lot of riff after riff after riff. And I think that there are a few of those instances on this new record. I just feel like one of the biggest differences actually is more so just the production and the way the songs fit together on this one. I think that the first record had a lot of riff train stuff, and it was kind of song after song, maybe only a couple like cohesive transfers. And this new one, I feel like, flows the way an album maybe not should be, but the way we wanted it to, and kind of shake a little bit of rust off how we had the first one arranged.
It does seem like there's a lot more harmonizing between the guitars on this one.
Yeah,
I don't know if you agree with that.
I would agree. Yeah. I feel like the third song on this new record has a kind of just this mid pace. It kind of reminds me of Heartwork in a way, but it's kind of mid pace and it has a lot of more harmony, and I guess lets some of the song and the riffs breathe a little more.
It reminds me of this old Swedish band called Eucharist. I don't know if you ever heard those guys.
Actually, Tony had shown me them at one point. I vaguely checked them out, but he did say that was an inspiration.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, he brought them up actually during the writing process, sent me the album, was like, oh, if you like, first at the gates, you should check this out. It's a little bit different, but, it has some similarities. And I totally think that now going back and listening to that I had only checked it out and the record was recorded. I went back and checked it out. I was like, oh, okay, this is totally where I got a lot of this, with maybe ideas for the production sound too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the production. Where did you guys end up going to record this?
So we went to Evan Mirsky, also known as Mouse, in Portland, Oregon. The studio he runs out of his Red Lantern Studios. We've been there since Webs of Horror, except for we did one single somewhere else in Portland. And this will now be, if there was Webs, Scream. I think this is our sixth time as Witch Vomit with them, or with him. So
okay.
We went there, and since we've worked together now for 10 years, we could really kind of go back through the discography, think about things we liked, things we maybe not didn't like, but don't want to hear in this one, or make some of the same mistakes, or not even mistakes, just things to focus better on. Like, I really wanted, the bass drum to punch through and be way more prominent and kind of drive more than I think some of the other records did. And I feel like the last record, as much as I liked it, Abhorrent Rapture, lacked a little bit of the bass drum. So we were just trying to look for like a little more just clean guitar sound, louder bass in general, bass drums. I think we showed him Considered Dead by Gorguts as an example of kind of how to, like, we want something heavy, we want to hear the riffs, and we want it, to be bassy. And then I think out of that, just through the songwriting, we got a little mix of like a heavier death metal record, and then a little more of, a record like Storm of the Light Span or Somberlane, just by the way the songwriting worked.
Right. You mentioned you've been working with Mouse since the Webs of Horror EP, and as you mentioned, over 10 years.
Yeah.
Why does the relationship work so well? What do you like about working with Mouse?
I think, we had met him, both Tony and I, through punk shows in town. He is slightly older than us, but still on the younger side, when we were out going to shows at that age. And we just had this good vibe with him where he is very driven in his recording, but he doesn't have a bias, or I would hate to say, but like an ego toward a certain genre or a social media presence for that matter. So he's recording all this different music from Portland and the area, punk, crust, death metal, black metal. So many people were going to him when he started recording there. And it made it easier to not have one-sided opinions or have like, I guess, different intentions. That not saying different engineers nowadays or newer-ish ones are doing, but a lot of them are metal focused or something like that, and there's a reason they want to do it, to record a style of music. And he just does a lot of different stuff that is underground, and he will give you feedback. He'll, like I said, he wants you to show him records like that he wants it, that we would want it to sound like. He also was doing reel to reel for those first couple releases we did with him. And then, then we started doing digital, but we got to kind of work together and then grow a bit together, and kind of, it just felt comfortable. And yeah, it just really worked for being able to spit ideas. Never seemed anxious at all when we were like, wanted to hang out and get as much as we wanted out of the day. Just always seemed to accommodate to our needs and make it worthwhile. So yeah, I think it was during COVID when we were writing Abhorrent Rapture and stuff just wasn't open. And, I remember Tony saying something like, man, like, I don't know what Mouse is doing right now, but we should try to fly him here and record with him. Like, I just think we hadn't had contact with him. And, he just made this thing like, it's got to be Mouse, when we come out back with stuff, when we can release stuff and play shows again, we got to do this post-COVID thing with Mouse, and I think it mainly was, the friendship, and just so easy to work with. And he'd worked with other friends and our other bands,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you say Mouse is a big part of Witch Vomit sound?
Definitely. I would say so. There's, now that we've gone this far, it would maybe not worry me, but it would definitely change our sound, or at least how we went about the next recording, or if we had to record without him. I feel like we would just need to take a lot that we learned from him, and because we would want to make it still match the style. And if I could choose, I want everything that we do with this band to be with him, just because he does have really good work, but you can also hear a lot of atmosphere, and you can hear the room, like it doesn't just sound compressed, it just doesn't sound fake, but it sounds clean and great. So yeah, I want to keep working with him for sure. I'm super happy that we've stuck with him, and I don't think Witch Vomit would be Witch Vomit without that whole growth all together and us working with him. And yeah, I think that it was a huge thing for our sound.
That's great. Do you want to say anything about the gentleman who mastered the album?
I think that would be a question for Tony.
Well, okay, so I'll say Dan Lowndes from Cruciamentum mastered the album.
Oh yeah. I mean, totally. I feel like I knew that. I do like his stuff, and I do like Cruciamentum. Yeah. But yes, keep talking.
No worries. Did he get involved through Mouse? Was he somebody that Mouse likes to work with, or did he come through the label?
Oh gosh, I think that could have been something where we had worked with someone, and then Tony just wanted to, through friends and people, wanted to use him this time. Yeah, I think that was mainly like Tony's idea, because we've had a few different people that have mastered our stuff over the years, actually. So that, I would say, we switched up. We had Damien from Horrendous. We had Dan Randall do from Mammoth Sound. And then I think, this one, Tony just wanted to do him. I think he just liked his stuff better and had been recommended him a lot.